Hi, my name is Wade Tolles, and I'm a Senior Sustainability Software Application Specialist at IBM. Today's how-to session is the third and final part of the IBM Common Licensing Tool series that I've been putting together recently. For this session, we'll be installing the software to a Red Hat 8.7 Linux server. The first two sessions of this series were on Windows servers, but the tool works the same on either Windows or Linux, so I wanted to show the setup on Linux before I moved on to another topic. DB2 is required for the admin and reporting tool, but it's not part of the how-to for this session, so I've already installed version 11.5.4. However, we'll create the required database today using the create database command. Also, the latest version of the IBM installation manager has already been installed on this server. And finally, I created a license file, but it has not been imported to the server. We'll do that using the admin tool, which is very different from the previous releases of the license key administration. So let's go ahead and get started with our slides. First, we'll go through our prerequisites. These are the same as on the Windows. Download the IBM license key server and administration and reporting tool, or the ART, the server and the agent. It's two tools. It's a reporting tool server, not the license server. I've downloaded iFix 5 of version 9, but download the latest version. Also, we're going to install the license key server version 9. You'll need DB2 Standard Edition version 11.5 plus. Now, the system requirements say you need 100 gigabytes of disk space, but I'm using 80 gigabytes on the VMs. The system requirements for memory are 8 gigabytes of RAM, but I think I have 12 on this image. And I'm saying ports to be aware of are these ports. The 27000 and 27001 are the standard licensing server ports. If you are using this server as a licensed server, you will need to open those so that your applications can access the ports. If you're not using this as a licensed server and only as a reporting server, then you don't need to open those ports. Ports 5043 and 4743 are for the admin tool and agent. You'll need to open those if you are using this remotely. So if you log into this from a browser from another machine, you'll need to open those ports. If you're accessing this from this server, then you don't need to open those either. Now, there's a couple of things that we have to note about Linux that are a little bit different. First of all, you must have a license key file when you install the license key server. If you don't, the server won't start. You also must have the following file. It's a library file that you can install using the yum install red hat-lsb for the Red Hat Linux version, and the other versions are there as well. And finally, you must import the license file before the agent can start the license key server. Again, that's very important. These are the files that you can download. Go ahead and check your Passport Advantage for that. Now, when you're administering the license key server with the agent is accessed from a browser, and it is accessed from the fully qualified domain name at port 5043 ICL agent. The username and password for that is lksadmin as shown. Similarly, with the reporting tool, it's the host name or the fully qualified domain name, port 4743 in rcladmin, and the username and password for that is rcladmin. This is just a general layout of how the licensing tool and reporting tool works. So let's go ahead and get into our demonstration now of how to configure the tool. As you see, I'm on a Red Hat license server. I'm going to go ahead and log in. And we're going to go ahead and start the installation manager. So we'll access our super user account and run the installation manager. First thing we'll do is we'll go to our preferences and we'll add the license repository. That is in the downloads folder of my home directory, and we're going to go to LKS9 and add the master disk. It will ask us for the other disk, so we don't have to do that here. Click install. It knows that there is an administration agent and reporting tool, but if we click those, it will ask for the disks and it won't work properly. So let's go ahead and click the license key server. Next. Install to the default locations. And click install. This is where it asks for the second disk, so we just go to the other folder, click OK, and it'll accept it and continue. Very quick, very easy to do. We'll finish that, and we will go ahead now and install our agent. Now, at this point, we could go ahead and look into our DAT file. Theoretically, and not even theoretically, I've done it. You can go into that file and you can modify it directly. The license file is a little different on the version 9 than it was in the previous versions. So if you notice that it is now called an LKS license DAT file, that file will be populated with the licenses, but this is the basic license file, and that's it. That's information that says it's the license file. If we needed to, without the reporting tool, we could import the license key into that, and that would work as a server if we import the license key first. Now, the license key is one more thing we have to be aware of. The first thing we also need to do is modify the license key. Now, the license key by default comes with a port number for the server. It's been created for the RHEL 864 server. So if your server name is not the same as what's in the license key, you either need to change your server name, which will also involve changing the DB2 node server name, or you need to create a new key file with the correct server. Also note that there are 3 vendor lines included: IBM Rational, Telelogic, and Rational. The Telelogic and Rational are held over from previous versions of the software, so we can delete both of those. And at the end of the first vendor screen, we're going to append that and say port equals 27001. Now this is the secondary port for the license key server. If you do not specify this manually here, it will randomly select the secondary port, and you will have to modify your port every time the server is restarted, which is a big pain. So go ahead and modify the license key file when you get it to remove those 2 unnecessary vendor outlines and add the port 27001 to the end of the vendor line. So we're going to save that. And now we're ready to install our agent. So similar to what we did with the license key server, we're going to go in. Well, first of all, we're going to turn off the license repository, and then we're going to add the agent repository. Now, the reason we're going to do the agent first is that we have to have a license server to do any reporting, obviously. Also, it has to be in order because the license server has to be in place so that the agent can set that information when it installs. So you'll see that in a minute here. Now we'll go ahead and install our agent. Again, accept the defaults. And here's where we're talking about it takes that information. First of all, the default ports, the standard HTTP and the HTTPS ports. we are setting this server up, or this agent up, for a license key server. We could set it up for the floating licenses that are installed on the Jazz server, but we're going to go with the license key server. And note that it sees where the license server is installed, and it sees where the log file information and the license file information is. So that's why we wanted to install the license key server first. Again, hit next and accept the defaults and install the agent. And click finish. And we're going to close this for now because we're going to be done with that until we come back later to install the reporting tool. At this point, we're going to go ahead and start the agent. So we've installed our license key server. We have not started the license key server from the license key server folder. We've installed the agent, and we are starting the agent. And then once we've started the agent, we're going to manage the license server from that. Now that the agent has started, we'll go ahead and launch our browser. And one thing we want to make sure of, or note while we're starting that. Now before we log into our browser, we want to make sure that our host name is correct. So let's go ahead and go to and modify our host file. And we see here that we have, first of all, looks like an older version of the host name. So we're going to fix that. And then we're going to add a fully qualified domain name. And we're going to call that LKS9. We'll call it Wade.com. So now we have a host name. So let's go ahead and go to the server here and enter our fully qualified domain name. Our port, which is 5043. And then ICL agent. This is a security risk because it is a self-signed certificate. Note that you can modify that in this file. We're not going to do that today, but you can enter your own SSL key, and that will then get rid of the security risk. At this point, though, we'll go ahead and accept the risk. It will save that self-signed certificate, and we won't see that again. Our user ID is LKSadmin, as is our password. Now note that the server is not running, but before we can start the server, we need to import and overwrite the license key. There is no license currently, so we're going to go back to our desktop into our download file and identify the license key file that we created and modified, and it has imported successfully. It says refresh the server status and deployed licenses after 3 minutes. So we've got to wait about 3 minutes before this licensed server will work properly. In the meantime, we can refresh the deployed licenses here, and it will show us the licenses that have been imported. And it's been a couple of minutes, so let's go ahead and we will start the server. And our server is now running. Now at this point, our license key server is running, and we see that we have 50 available licenses. So let's go ahead and check that from our Jazz server. Let's go ahead and log in as our admin account. Currently, our license server is pointing at an existing license server, which is LKS8, which is a previous licensed server. This is the older, or the other licensed server that's been running. So we can close that up or minimize that and go back to our Jazz server, and let's change that to our LKS9 server that we just created. We'll click finish and note that our status is OK. Note here that we have the CL admin user has a Doors Next license. So let's go ahead and log into the Requirements Management project. And we will check out a license. Let's go to our Artifacts view and simply select one of the artifacts and open it up. The fact that we can do that means that the license is being granted. And if we do a refresh on our folder here, we'll note that a license has been checked out. 9 tokens have been checked out. So our license server is working, and our administration agent is also monitoring those licenses. At this point, we'll go ahead and we can close that or log out of that. And we'll go ahead and exit out of the license key server so that we can now go ahead and install the reporting tool. We'll restart our installation manager. Go back to our preferences, uncheck our repository, and add the reporting tool repository now. And now we can install that. Accept the license agreement. Again, we'll go with the standard folders and perform the installation. At this point, we are finished with the installation manager. We can close that out. A couple of things though, we do still have to install our database. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to create our database. So what we'll do is let's clear that out. We're going to super user into our DB2 INST1 account, and we're going to run first DB2 list database directory, and there should be no databases. It's empty. So we'll create our database by, first of all, we're going to change directory into the DB2 installation instance 1 home directory, and now we're going to go ahead and run create.db2 create database art data using code set UTF-8 territory default. And now that our database is created, let's go ahead and make sure by listing the database directory. And there's our database. So now that we have our reporting tool installed and our database is created, let's go back to our browser. And this time, we will go to we can use the host name here, but we'll use the FQDN. And the port is 4743. And it would be great if we started that first. So let's exit out of that. and go back to our all right, and let's try that again. Same thing with the SSL. This is self-signed, so we'll accept the risk and continue. We're now, instead of LKS admin, we're going to use RCL admin and log in. At this point, we need to set up our database. So we'll log in and go ahead and click next. The host name is the host name that we're on. We're going to use the actual host name. The port number is the default DB2 port number. The user ID is the database ID. And the password is the database password. We can test that connection. When it's successful, click Save and then Finish. And we will have to restart the server to complete the setup, so we'll log out. And now we'll run the stop command. And then the start command again. Now we can log back in. And our reporting tool is now configured for the database. The next thing we need to do, though, is we need to add our server. Again, we are looking at the license key server. We'll call this the LKS. And the host is the current host. And the port is 5043. Let's go ahead and add the server. And if I keyed everything in, that will be successful. Now at this point, our server is configured, the database is configured, the license key server has been entered into the tool, and immediately we can view a live report of what's happening on the server. Note that just like the agent, the reporting tool shows that of the 50 licenses served, 9 are in use and 41 are available. The other thing we can do is create report definitions, modify report definitions. We can add users other than the default user. And we can do various other commands, such as we can modify our information to create chargebacks, configure the tool for LDAP for single sign-on, configure email information. But in essence, the reports are what we're looking at, and immediately the view live reports are available. So I'll state right off that if you go to create a report definition, the licenses will not be available until the license server refreshes, or rather the JAS server refreshes. That information takes a few minutes to load in the background. So the reports are more of a database information. So that information is written to the database and pulled from the database, but the live reports are immediate. That's it for our how-to for the license key server administration and reporting tool and on the Linux server. I hope this was helpful. If you've got any questions, please feel free to send me an email at kenneth.tolles@ibm.com. Have a great day.